You are TK-4782 and you believe in the Empire. 4 years after Yavin, standing in the lower hangar bay of the Star Destroyer Relentless, you believe that victory is inevitable, that the rebellion is a dying infection being slowly purged from the galaxy by Imperial might. Your armor is white and clean. Your E-11 blaster rifle is freshly charged, and when you stand at attention in formation with 2,000 other Stormtroopers, you are part of something vast and eternal. The officers tell you that the forest moon of Endor is a minor engagement, a routine operation to protect the second Death Star while it completes construction. They tell you the Emperor himself is overseeing the project, that Lord Vader commands the fleet, that nothing can go wrong. They are lying, or they are fools, or perhaps they simply cannot see what is about to happen. You stand in the hangar as the ship shudders, feeling the vibrations through your boots, through the deck plates, and the alarm klaxons begin to wail. The PA system crackles with static, and then a voice, tight with panic, announces that the Death Star has been destroyed, that the Emperor is dead, that Admiral Piet is dead, that all ships are to break formation and retreat. But there is nowhere to retreat to, because the rebel fleet is everywhere, Mon Calamari cruisers and frigates tearing through the Imperial formation like predators through a herd. The Relentless takes a direct hit amidships, and the artificial gravity fails for 3 seconds that stretch into eternity. You are weightless, floating, watching through your helmet's HUD as sections of the ship decompress, as hundreds of crew members are sucked into the void, their bodies spinning away into the black between the stars. Gravity returns with brutal force, slamming you against the deck, and your armor absorbs most of the impact, but you still feel something crack in your ribs, pain blooming hot and sharp beneath the plastoid plating. Around you, Stormtroopers are scrambling, trying to reach the evacuation capsules, trying to escape a ship that is dying beneath their feet. The capsule bay is chaos. There are supposed to be procedures, orderly evacuation protocols, but the command structure has collapsed along with everything else. Officers are gone, dead or fled, and it is just troopers fighting each other to get into the capsules. You shove your way forward, using your size and your armor to force a path, and you make it into a capsule designed for 12 that now holds 20. Bodies pressed against bodies, the smell of fear and sweat overwhelming even through your helmet's filters. The capsule launches with a violent lurch, throwing you against the trooper beside you, and through the small viewport you can see the Relentless breaking apart, its hull splitting open, fire and debris and tiny figures tumbling into space. The capsule's descent is uncontrolled, spiraling toward the forest moon, and you know without being told that the guidance system is damaged, that you are going to hit hard. The troopers around you are silent, locked in their armor and their terror, and you grip the safety harness and count the seconds until impact. The capsule hits the tree canopy first, branches tearing at the hull, the sound like 1,000 claws scraping against metal, and then it crashes into the ground with force that turns the world into noise and pain and darkness. When you wake, your helmet HUD is cracked, half the readouts dead or flickering with corrupted data. Your ribs hurt worse now, each breath a lesson in agony. You unseal your helmet and pull it off, needing to see without the broken interface, and the air of Endor fills your lungs, thick and humid and smelling of vegetation and smoke. The capsule is half buried in dirt and shattered trees, its hull breached in a dozen places. Around you, the other troopers are pulling themselves upright, checking for injuries, taking stock. Out of 20 who entered the capsule, 8 are moving. The others are dead or dying, bodies twisted in their armor, blood leaking from seals and joints. You stumble out of the wreckage into a forest that seems to stretch forever in all directions. The trees are massive, ancient things, their trunks wider than the capsule, their canopy so thick it turns the daylight into a perpetual twilight. In the distance, you can see smoke rising, dozens of columns marking where other ships and capsules have fallen. The sky above occasionally lights up with explosions, the battle still raging in orbit, but down here in the forest, it is strangely quiet, just the sound of wind through leaves and distant fires crackling. One of the surviving troopers, his armor marked with sergeant stripes, takes command. His designation is TK-9341, but he tells you to call him Ven because rank and protocol feel like luxuries from a life that ended somewhere in the void above. Ven organizes the survivors, establishes a perimeter, tries to raise someone on the comms. The long-range transmitter is dead, crushed in the crash. The short-range channels are full of static and panicked voices, other survivors calling out coordinates and casualty reports and pleas for extraction. Ven broadcasts your position, gives a status report, and receives no response from any Imperial command. You spend the first night huddled in the wreckage of the capsule, taking turns on watch, trying to ignore the pain and the fear. Your ration packs were destroyed in the crash, just torn packages and crushed bars scattered among the debris. Someone finds a med kit that is mostly intact, and you pass around painkillers and bandages, treating what injuries you can. The trooper next to you, TK-7709, has a compound fracture in his left arm, the bone visible through torn skin. You help him splint it with pieces of plastoid cut from damaged armor, and he bites down on a strap to keep from screaming. His name is Kor, and he tells you he is from Corellia, that he joined the Empire because it was the only job available, that he has a sister he has not seen in 3 years. You tell him you are from Coruscant, that you joined because you believed in order, in stability. Neither of you mentions victory anymore. On the second day, Ven decides you need to move, to find other Imperial survivors, and consolidate. He plots a route based on the last comm signals before the transmitter died, coordinates that suggest a gathering point 15 kilometers to the north. You gather what supplies you can salvage, filling packs with broken equipment and emergency gear, and you start walking. The forest is hostile in ways you did not anticipate. The ground is uneven, covered in roots and vines that catch at your boots. The air is so humid that moisture condenses inside your armor, running down your back and pooling in uncomfortable places. Insects, huge things with too many legs and wings that hum like engines, swarm around you, finding gaps in your armor seals and biting exposed skin. You are 3 hours into the march when the first trap kills someone. TK-6623, whose name you never learned, steps on what looks like solid ground and falls through into a pit lined with sharpened stakes. The scream is brief and horrible, and when you reach the edge and look down, you see him impaled, blood soaking into the earth, his armor cracked open like an egg. Ven orders everyone to watch their footing, to move more carefully, and the pace slows to a crawl. Every step is potential death, every shadow could hide another trap, and you begin to understand that you are not alone in this forest. The Ewoks, you learn later, though at the time you do not know what they are called. Small furry beings, barely reaching your waist, with primitive weapons and a knowledge of the forest that is absolute. They do not attack openly. Not at first. They watch from the trees, golden eyes in the shadows, tracking your movements. On the third night, one of your sentries disappears. You find him at dawn, hanging from a tree by a vine noose, his neck broken, his helmet removed and placed carefully at the base of the tree like a trophy. Ven orders everyone to stay in sight of each other, to never go anywhere alone, but the forest is vast and the Ewoks are patient. By the time you reach the coordinates, 5 days later, 3 more troopers are dead. One to a deadfall trap that crushed him beneath a log the size of a land speeder. One to poisonous plants that he brushed against, the toxins seeping through a crack in his gauntlet and stopping his heart in minutes. One simply disappeared during a night watch, and you never find his body, just drag marks in the dirt leading off into impenetrable undergrowth. The 5 of you who remain are exhausted, hungry, and terrified in ways that training never prepared you for. The Imperial gathering point is a clearing at the base of a cliff, and it holds perhaps 200 Stormtroopers, along with officers, naval crew, technicians, pilots without ships. They have established a perimeter using debris from crashed ships, built crude shelters from salvaged materials, and organized themselves into something resembling military order. The commanding officer is a captain named Terek, a career military man whose Star Destroyer died above him and who now commands by virtue of being the highest surviving rank. Tarek is organizing the survivors, establishing schedules and duties, maintaining discipline, as though this is a temporary setback rather than total collapse. You are assigned to perimeter defense, walking the edges of the camp with your blaster rifle, watching the tree line for Ewok attacks that come at random intervals. Sometimes they throw rocks, hurled with slings that hit hard enough to dent armor. Sometimes they shoot arrows, crude projectiles that cannot penetrate plastoid but find gaps with disturbing accuracy. Sometimes they raid at night, slipping past sentries to steal supplies or kill isolated troopers. The body count climbs slowly but steadily, and every morning there are new graves being dug in the clearing, shallow holes marked with rifles stuck barrel down in the dirt. The food situation becomes critical within a week. The supplies salvaged from the crashes are finite, and more survivors arrive daily, stumbling out of the forest in ones and twos, exhausted and injured and desperate. Captain Tarek implements rationing, 1 ration bar per day, supplements of forest vegetation that the technicians have tested and declared non-toxic, if not exactly nutritious. You chew bark stripped from certain trees, the taste bitter and woody, the texture like eating cloth. You drink water from streams, filtered through emergency purifiers that clog constantly with sediment and require cleaning. Your body, accustomed to regular military rations, begins to consume itself, muscle mass dwindling, ribs becoming visible when you remove your armor to sleep. The armor itself becomes a problem. It is designed for climate control, for filtered air and regulated temperature, but the power packs are dying and replacements are scarce. You learn to function with dead armor, with plastoid that is just weight and protection without any of the systems that make it bearable. The heat is oppressive, turning the inside of your chest plate into a sauna, sweat soaking the black body glove beneath until it chafes and rubs your skin raw. You develop rashes and infections in the folds of skin under the armor, painful red patches that itch and burn. The medical supplies are gone within 2 weeks, and after that, injuries are treated with improvisation, bandages made from torn fabric, antiseptic replaced with alcohol distilled from fermented plants. Captain Tarek keeps promising that extraction is coming, that the Empire is regrouping, that ships will arrive to evacuate you. But weeks turn into months, and no ships come. The long-range transmitter, cobbled together from parts of a dozen crashed fighters, manages to make contact once, briefly, with an Imperial frequency. The response is terse and chilling. The Empire is in retreat. All forces are to hold position and await further orders. No timeline is given. No promises are made. By the end of the first year, the camp population has declined from 200 to 70. Disease takes more than the Ewoks do. Something in the water, or the food, or just the conditions, causes dysentery that leaves troopers dehydrated and too weak to stand. You watch Kor die of it, curled in his shelter, crying for his sister, blood and fluid leaking from his body until there is nothing left. You help bury him, one more grave in a clearing that is more cemetery than camp, and you feel nothing because feeling would break you. The New Republic, as the rebellion now calls itself, does not come to Endor to take prisoners. They are too busy fighting the remnants of the Imperial fleet, too stretched across 1,000 systems to care about 70 stranded Stormtroopers on a backwater moon. You are forgotten, ghosts haunting a forest, surviving day to day with no purpose beyond survival itself. In the second year, a ship finally arrives, but it is not Imperial. A light freighter, smuggler configuration, lands in the clearing and disgorges a Rhodian trader who offers to evacuate survivors in exchange for everything of value they possess. Captain Tarek, diminished by starvation and fever, negotiates passage for 30 troopers, paying with salvaged equipment, weapons, and the last functional power generators. You are not among the 30. The selection is made by lottery, names drawn from a helmet, and yours is not called. You watch the freighter lift off, carrying away brothers who might survive, and you feel relief mixed with envy, grateful not to have to make impossible choices and bitter at being left behind. The camp collapses after that. With Tarek gone, With the strongest survivors evacuated, the remaining 40 Stormtroopers splinter into smaller groups. Discipline evaporates. Some try to maintain military structure, but most just want to survive. You join a group of 5, led by Ven, who has somehow endured when so many others have died. Ven has a plan, or at least an idea. There are reports, rumors from the Ewoks, who have started trading with survivors, that Imperial forces are regrouping in the Outer Rim, that warlords and admirals are carving out territories from the collapsing Empire. If you can get off Endor, if you can find a ship and a way to the Outer Rim, you can rejoin the fight. It takes 3 months to make contact with another trader, a human woman with a battered YT-1300, who agrees to transport you and your group off-world in exchange for labor. She is hauling freight between Outer Rim systems, and she needs muscle, people willing to load cargo and provide security. You agree immediately, because anything is better than dying slowly in the forest. The day you leave Endor, standing in the freighter's hold as the moon falls away beneath you, you feel nothing. No relief, no joy, just emptiness where hope used to be. The Outer Rim is chaos. The Empire has fragmented into dozens of competing factions, each led by an admiral or moff or general who claims to be the legitimate successor to Palpatine's throne. Some control entire sectors, fielding fleets and armies. Others hold single systems, warlords in all but name. You and Ven's group make contact with a field commander operating in the Quelly sector, a former admiral named Harlock, who is recruiting Imperial survivors to bolster his forces. Harlock promises regular pay, proper equipment, a chance to fight back against the New Republic that is systematically dismantling everything the Empire built. The reality is far from the promise. Harlock's forces are poorly supplied, operating on salvaged equipment and captured rebel gear. Your white armor, stained and battered from Endor, is replaced with mismatched pieces, a breastplate from a dead trooper, shoulder pauldrons salvaged from a crashed TIE pilot, a helmet with a long crack running down the faceplate that you seal with industrial adhesive. The armor is gray now, all the pieces painted the same dull color to hide their disparate origins, and you look like a scavenger playing dress-up rather than an Imperial Stormtrooper. The pay is irregular at best. Harlock promises credits, but what arrives are ration packs, stims, and ammunition. You are paid in the means to continue fighting, nothing more. Food is acquired through requisition, a polite word for taking what you need from civilian populations. You raid agricultural worlds, confiscating grain and livestock, telling yourself it is for the glory of the Empire, for the restoration of order. But the faces of the farmers, the fear and hatred in their eyes as you point rifles at their children, makes it clear what you really are. You are not a soldier. You are a thief with a blaster. The missions are terror operations, designed to destabilize New Republic control through fear and violence. You bomb civilian infrastructure, targeting power plants and water treatment facilities, leaving cities without light or clean water. You assassinate local officials, New Republic sympathizers, shooting them in their homes or on public streets to send a message. You conduct raids on settlements, killing combatants and non-combatants alike. Because Harlock's rules of engagement are simple. Anyone who supports the New Republic is an enemy, and enemies are to be eliminated. YouTube. One mission has you deploying to a colony on the edge of Harlock's territory, a settlement that has voted to join the New Republic and requested protection. Your orders are to make an example, to show the cost of defiance. You land at dawn with a company of troopers and you go through the settlement systematically, dragging people from their homes. The adults are separated from the children, lined up in the town square. The officer in charge, a cold-eyed lieutenant, reads a proclamation declaring them traitors, and then the firing squad opens up. 37 people die in less than a minute, bodies crumpling to the ground, blood pooling on the dirt. The children are left alive, forced to watch, so they can spread the story, so fear will do the work that soldiers cannot. You pull the trigger with the others because refusing would make you the next target. But that night, lying in your bunk on the transport back to base, you cannot stop seeing their faces, cannot stop hearing the sound of the children crying. You take a stim to force sleep, and when it comes, it is full of nightmares. Corpses with your face, forests that eat you alive, storms that never end. YouTube. The New Republic is winning, system by system, month by month. They have legitimacy, resources, momentum. Harlock's territory shrinks, planets peeling away to join the Republic or simply declaring independence. The missions become more desperate, the targets softer, the brutality escalating as tactical necessity gives way to spite and revenge. You hear stories of other Imperial remnants, of Grand Admiral Thrawn gathering forces in the unknown regions, of Moff Gideon conducting experiments with cloning and Force-sensitive children. But these are distant rumors, myths to sustain morale in troops who know they are losing. 5 years after Endor, the New Republic launches a major offensive into Harlock's territory, and the fragile Warlord Empire collapses in weeks. You are part of a rearguard action on a nameless moon, holding a ridgeline while transport ships evacuate command staff and equipment. The Republic sends ground troops, well-equipped soldiers with artillery support, and your position is untenable from the start. You fight because there is nothing else to do, firing down at advancing troops, watching brothers die round you as shells tear apart the ridge. Ven takes shrapnel to the chest, the metal shredding his armor and the flesh beneath, and he dies in your arms. Coughing blood, his last words a confused question about why the reinforcements have not arrived. The reinforcements are never coming. Harlock is dead or fled, his fleet scattered, his territory absorbed into the Republic. You retreat with a handful of survivors into the rocky badlands beyond the ridge, abandoning your position, becoming deserters by default. For 3 days, you hide in caves, drinking from stagnant pools, eating nothing, waiting for the Republic troops to find and finish you. But they do not come hunting. They have already moved on, securing orbital facilities and population centers, leaving the wilderness to whatever remnants want to die slowly in the rocks. You make it off-world on a refugee transport, claiming to be a mining laborer displaced by the fighting. Your armor is buried in a cave, left behind because it is too recognizable, too dangerous to carry. You wear civilian clothes, dirty and ill-fitting, and you keep your head down and your mouth shut. The transport drops you on a trade station in the Metharian sector, and from there you drift, taking work where you can find it, trying to disappear into the anonymous masses that fill the galaxy. The work is brutal and degrading. You load cargo on freight docks, 12-hour shifts of hauling crates in artificial gravity that is set too low to save on power costs, your back screaming after hours of repetitive lifting. You clean waste reclamation systems on stations, crawling through access tubes filled with sewage and chemical runoff, breathing through a cheap filter mask that does little to keep out the smell. You take jobs with criminal syndicates, low-level muscle work, standing behind a Hutt enforcer while he collects debts. Your presence a threat even without a weapon. 10 years after Endor, you're on Ord Mantell, working security for a smuggling operation run by a Quarren named Squalos. The pay is decent, the work is simple, and you have learned not to ask questions about the cargo. One shipment is ambushed by what you assume are rival smugglers, and you are in the firefight before you realize the ambushers are wearing Imperial armor, gray and patched like yours once was. They are remnants, soldiers serving some warlord you have never heard of, trying to steal supplies to sustain their dying cause. You shoot them because Squalos pays you and they do not, because survival has become more important than ideology. You stand over the body of a trooper you just killed, looking at armor that could have been yours, and you feel nothing. The Empire is dead. The Republic is ascendant. And you are just a man with a blaster, killing to stay alive. YouTube. You are 33 years old when the New Republic offers amnesty to former Imperial military personnel. The conditions are clear and humiliating. You must surrender, register with Republic authorities, provide full disclosure of your service record, and accept assignment to whatever labor program they deem appropriate. There are no trials, no punishment beyond the terms of service, but there is also no forgiveness, no acknowledgement that you might have been anything other than a willing participant in atrocity. You turn yourself in on Coruscant at a processing center in the lower industrial levels, standing in a line with hundreds of other former Imperials. The intake officer is a Mon Calamari who looks at you with barely concealed disgust, taking your biometrics, photographing you from multiple angles, asking questions in a flat, bureaucratic tone. What was your designation? What units did you serve with? What operations did you participate in? You answer honestly because lying would just extend the process, and honesty no longer carries any particular cost. You are TK-4782. You served in the Relentless, under Captain Terek on Endor, under Admiral Harlock in the Quelly sector. You participated in counterinsurgency operations, pacification missions, requisition actions. You killed civilians. You do not know how many. The Mon Calamari makes notes, tags your file, and assigns you to waste reclamation services in the lower levels of Coruscant. You're given a worker's chit, a housing assignment, and a curfew. You are told that violating the terms of your amnesty will result in immediate incarceration. You are told that the Republic is merciful, that you are fortunate to have this opportunity, that you should be grateful. You nod and sign the forms and take your chit, and you do not tell the Mon Calamari that you stopped feeling anything resembling gratitude years ago. The housing is a dormitory in sub-level 3000, a long room lined with bunk beds, each bunk separated by a thin privacy curtain. You share the space with 5 other former Imperials, all of them former Stormtroopers, all of them silent and withdrawn. No one uses names. No one talks about the past. At night, you lie in your bunk and listen to the sounds of men crying, trying to muffle the noise in pillows, ashamed of their weakness. You do not cry. You have not cried since Endor, since the forest and the traps and the slow realization that you had been abandoned. Tears are another casualty of the war, something left behind with your armor and your illusions. The work is mind-numbing. You process waste from the upper levels, sorting recyclables from garbage, feeding organic material into composting units that break it down into fertilizer. The smell is overwhelming, a miasma of decay and chemicals that clings to your clothes and skin. You shower at the end of each shift, but the smell never quite leaves, lingering in your nostrils, making food taste like rot. Your supervisor is a Rhodian named Veeks, who takes obvious pleasure in assigning the worst tasks to former Imperials, who makes comments about Imperial atrocities while watching for reactions. The civilians of Coruscant treat you with a mixture of fear and contempt. They know what you are, what you were, because the Republic requires amnesty workers to wear identification badges, small orange tags clipped to your shirt that mark you as former military, former enemy. People spit at you on the street, and you do not react because reacting would violate your amnesty terms. Shopkeepers refuse to serve you, and you take your business elsewhere without complaint. Children throw rocks, and you walk faster, keep your head down, accept the abuse as the price of survival. You spend evenings in a bar on sub-level 2900, a dim hole called Grendel's that caters to lower-level workers and does not care about your past. The alcohol is cheap and harsh, distilled from synthetic proteins, but it dulls the edges and makes sleep possible. The clientele is a mix of species and backgrounds, dock workers and maintenance techs and criminals, everyone too tired or too broken to cause trouble. Sometimes you see other former Imperials, recognizing them by the orange tags, by the way they sit with their backs to walls, by the haunted look in their eyes. You do not acknowledge each other. There is nothing to say. One night, you sit at the bar next to a human woman with gray hair and scars on her hands, and after several drinks she tells you she was a rebel pilot, flew an X-Wing at Yavin and Hoth and Endor. You tell her you were on the ground at Endor, in the forest, fighting Ewoks and starvation. She looks at you for a long moment, and you wait for accusation or anger, but instead she just nods and orders another drink. You sit in silence, 2 veterans of opposite sides, survivors of a war that consumed millions, and the silence is more communication than words could ever be. 20 years after Endor, the galaxy has moved on. The new republic is established, stable, bureaucratic. The last Imperial holdouts have been defeated or absorbed. Grand Admiral Thrawn is dead, killed at the Battle of Bilbringi. Moff Gideon and his remnants have been hunted down. The Empire is history, studied by academics, remembered by veterans, forgotten by everyone else. A new generation has grown up in a galaxy without Imperial rule, and to them you are a relic, a reminder of a dark time that they only know from history files. You are 52 years old, and your body is failing in the ways that hard labor and poor nutrition guarantee. Your back is chronically injured, discs compressed from years of lifting, pain radiating down your legs with every step. Your hands shake with early onset nerve damage, a legacy of chemical exposure in waste processing. Your lungs are scarred, breathing labored, each winter bringing infections that leave you bedridden for weeks. The Republic medical system treats you because Amnesty terms include basic health care, but the doctors are perfunctory, prescribing pain medication and physical therapy without interest or compassion. You do not work anymore, retired on a disability stipend that barely covers food and housing. You spend your days in the dormitory or at Grendel's, watching the other residents, men and women who served the Empire and now exist in its shadow. Some have found peace, rebuilt lives, formed families, or found purpose. Most are like you, hollow and waiting, existing without living. The suicide rate among Amnesty workers is high, though the Republic does not publicize the numbers. You find bodies sometimes, men who have hung themselves in the dormitory, showers, or overdosed on medication, choosing oblivion over the slow grind of survival. You report them to the authorities, and they are removed, and nothing changes. You think about Endor sometimes, about the forest and the camp and the brothers who died there. You wonder if their graves are still there, if the Ewoks disturbed them, if anything remains to mark their passing. You think about Ven and Kor and the others whose names you have forgotten, faces blurred by time and trauma. You wonder if you survived out of strength or luck or simple stubbornness, if there was any meaning to your survival, or if you are just the last domino that has not yet fallen. The galaxy does not care. The New Republic celebrates anniversary after anniversary of the Battle of Endor, great ceremonies honoring the heroes who destroyed the Death Star and killed the Emperor. There are no ceremonies for the soldiers who died in the forest, no monuments to Stormtroopers who believed in order and stability and gave their lives for a cause that betrayed them. You are a footnote, a statistic, a problem that was solved through amnesty programs and forced labor. Your existence is evidence of mercy, proof that the Republic is better than the Empire it replaced. But you do not feel mercy. You feel only the weight of years, the accumulated trauma of survival, the knowledge that you lived long enough to see everything you believed in proven false. 30 years after Endor, you're sitting in Grendel's, nursing a drink you can barely afford, when you hear news that changes nothing and everything. The First Order has emerged from the unknown regions, a new empire rising from the ashes of the old, with new ships and new stormtroopers and the same promises of order through strength. The patrons of the bar watch the Holonet broadcast with a mixture of fear and weary resignation, understanding that the cycle is beginning again, that a new generation will be fed into the machinery of war and ideology. YouTube +1, you watch the images of white-armored troopers marching in perfect formation, and you feel a ghost of something that might once have been pride or might just be recognition. They are younger, newer, products of a system that learned from the Empire's failures and adapted. They will fight and die for their cause, and some will survive to face their own Endors, their own moments of collapse and abandonment. The cycle continues because the galaxy never learns, because power always promises order, and order always demands sacrifice. You finish your drink and leave the bar, walking through the lower levels of Coruscant, past the workers and the criminals and the forgotten. Your lungs labor, each breath a conscious effort. Your legs ache, joints grinding bone on bone. Your hands shake as you grip the railing on a stairway, pulling yourself up one step at a time. You are 74 years old in a galaxy that has moved on, a ghost of a dead empire, surviving not because you want to, but because dying requires more effort than you can muster. Back in the dormitory, you lie in your bunk and stare at the ceiling, listening to the familiar sounds of men sleeping and crying and existing in the space between life and death. You think about the boy you were, the trooper who stood in the hangar of the Relentless and believed in victory, and you wonder what he would think of what you became. Would he understand the compromises, the brutality, the long, slow surrender of principle to necessity? Or would he see you as a traitor, a coward who survived when better men died? You do not have an answer. You have only this moment and the next, and the string of moments that leads inevitably to an end that you cannot see but know is coming. The Empire fell, and you fell with it, and the brutal reality is that no one cares, no one remembers, no one will mark your passing with anything more than paperwork and disposal. You are a Stormtrooper who lived too long, who saw the lie beneath the armor, who learned that power is a drug and loyalty is a trap and survival is its own punishment. The galaxy will spin on without you. New empires will rise and fall. New soldiers will march in white armor, believing in causes that will abandon them, fighting wars that will consume them, and in dormitories and bars and forgotten corners across 1,000 worlds, the survivors will sit and remember and wait for the mercy of oblivion, knowing that the brutal reality of being a soldier for a fallen empire is that you do not get to die a hero. You only get to live long enough to understand that you never were one.